Good morning, fellows. Welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. I'm on fire today, brothers and sisters. First of all, let me give a big shout out to Toby Amusan. Toby Amusan won the 100 meters race world championship in Oregon last week, and she broke the record twice. A big shout out to her. Naija people are taking over the world right now. You have Toby Amusan winning the hurdles, 100-meter hurdles race by breaking the record twice within hours. I mean, breaking the record twice within hours, unprecedented. Nobody ever in this world has ever done that since they began with timing of the athletes. Nobody has ever done that. She broke the record in the semifinals with 12.12 seconds. And then in the finals, she broke the record again with 12.06 seconds. Nobody has ever done that. She's the only person to do that in any sport, period. So a big shout out to Toby Amusan. Naija is proud of you, and the world is proud of you for what you have accomplished. And also, let me give another shout out to Kiss Daniel with his song Booga. He also had a big concert in New York, which was packed. So Naija is taking over the world today. Naija is taking over the world. Naija all over the place. If you're in America, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, now today's subject is the Pope's tour, apology tour. I will call it apology tour of the Pope Francis. Pope Francis embarked on apology tour this week. He went to Canada to apologize to the natives, the Native Americans of Canada, for the role the Catholic Church played in pretty much taking children from the natives and forcing them to convert into Catholicism and Christianity. In some cases, even preventing them from speaking their own languages. Their own languages were banned. Their own languages was banned by the Catholic Church. I mean, this is supposed to be a church. The church that is supposed to preach about kindness, tolerance, will treat a certain group of people because of who they are. So the Pope, who did the right thing by going to Canada and going to the natives to apologize for the role of the Catholic Church. Remember, they started doing this. The Catholic missionaries had schools in the natives area of Canada. They started in the 1880 all the way through to the 1996. And there were a lot of abuses that these children have to go through at the hands of the so-called fathers and missionaries. I mean, you go figure. Now we're talking about the Catholic Church role in the native area in Canada. What about the role they also played in Africa? I want to see the Pope make a tour to Africa, first to apologize to the role of the Catholic Church in slavery. And secondly, also the abuses that some of these missionaries of the Catholic Church inflicted on the African children. We don't talk about it. We don't hear about it. By about 15 years ago, in America, it was a big deal. The Catholic Church abuses in America was a big deal. There have been a lot of lawsuits in America that pretty much has drained the Catholic church coffers in America. So the Catholic Church has to start selling some of their buildings and some of their investments in America to settle the lawsuits because of the abuses that were inflicted on children by some of the priests and the missionaries in America. You know, lawsuits all over in America because of that. But somehow I've never heard, I don't know, I've never heard of it, but if you have heard of it in Africa, where any African country have filed a lawsuit against the Catholic Church, please let me know about it. You can comment on it and let me know, and I will do research on that. But because so far, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything because you cannot convince me that these abuses took place in America, North America, among the the natives in Canada. It happened in America against children in America, but somehow with all these missionary schools that the Catholic institution, the Catholic Church built in Africa, somehow it didn't happen in Africa. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. It did happen. Because I know some of my friends went to these schools in Ghana, you know, and Nigeria with these Catholic missionaries and all that stuff, calling them Father John, Father Benedict, and Father Peter, and all that stuff. And most of these people were abusers. Most of these so-called fathers, I remember some of these mates who say, we are going to see Father John, Father this, Father that. A lot of them were abused. A lot of them were abused. That's what happened. But for some reason, Africa is not standing up to confront the Catholic Church on that issue. But all over the world, especially in America, it is happening. The Americans filed lawsuits about 10 to 15 years ago against the Catholic Church. A lot of lawsuits, you know. And even in some cases, some of the cardinals who are the top, indeed the Catholic institution, were even implicated in these things, you know. So this thing happened. It happened in Africa too, okay? Outside of that, I also want to see him apologize for the role that the Catholic Church played in the slavery. I mean, if you people don't know a little history about the role of the Catholic Church, I can give you a little history about the role in America. The Jesuits institution, which is within the Catholic Church, which is called the the Catholic Friends of Jesus, Catholic Society of Jesus, the Jesuits. They founded the first Catholic university in America, which is Georgetown University, very prominent university in America, Georgetown University, founded by the Jesuits in America. Do you know the Jesuits were selling slaves? The founding of that institution, Georgetown University, was funded with the sale of African slaves in America. These are facts, recorded facts. That is how the university, the Georgetown University, was founded in America, by selling slaves. The money that the Jesuits used to start building that institution, the school, was out of selling slaves, fellow human beings. And this is the church. The church called, the church, within the church, the society called the Catholic Society of Jesus Christ, selling other fellow human beings as slaves to use that money to fund the building of that Catholic Georgetown University. And it was the first university, Catholic university in America, long before Notre Dame in Indiana and the other Catholic university in Washington, D.C. and all of that stuff. Georgetown University was the first one. So I would love to hear the Pope go on an African tour too, apologize to the Africans, the role the Catholic Church played in slavery, because they played a big role in slavery. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if he can come to North America and apologize to the natives of Canada, the Indians, American Indians of Canada, about their role of abusing these people, taking away their children, forcing them to convert into Christianity and Catholicism, even denying them the right to speak their own language, denying them the right to speak their own language, their native language. And this is supposed to be a church. This is a church That is what we are talking about. We are not talking about some fraudsters walking down the street. We're talking about a church. So you people go figure the history of some of these churches and the role they have played. And today we all think that everything is kumbaya, everything is kumbaya, everything is nice, everything is okay. Nobody wants to talk about it. But this is what happened. So I'll be very, very happy if the Pope will go on African tour to apologize to the Africans. Specifically, the abuses that some of these missionary fathers in most of these African schools, high schools, some of the abuse that they did to the children. Because they did a lot. They did a lot. They didn't do it just in America or Latin America. They did it in Europe, because everywhere in Europe there have been lawsuits in Europe, there have been lawsuits in America. So you have to know it happened in Africa as well. And as a matter of fact, I strongly believe that it happened more in Africa than anywhere else. And they got away with it. At the end of the day, what can the African do? Because they need these institutions to help them with building their schools, giving them money, charity work. So we basically have to be mute. We don't have to raise that issue with them. Because if you raise that issue with them, somehow we are going to offend the institution. And they might end up cutting down on their investments in these institutions that they have established over 100, 200 years in Africa. So we have to just keep our mouth shut and accept it. No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. We are human beings just like everybody else. Okay? And some of these abuses have done a lot of damage to some of these children who are grown now. And so we have to say something. Our leaders have to say something. For the Catholic Church to know that yes, we are also angry. It's not just the European or the American or the Native American who is angry. The Africans are also angry, because the Africans are also human beings. And what is so even worse? What is even worse more than the fact that the role that they played in slavery, they funded even not just the building of the university, Catholic University in America or the Georgetown University. Some of even the slaves that were brought from Africa, some of the investments. Remember, most of the slave trade were investments by European companies and banks and the and the monarchies, including the monarchy of England. They funded a project for them to go and bring slaves. That's how they made their money. There was a time that slavery brought in more money than any other investment in the world, either gold or silver, cotton, or all of that. That's how much slavery became so much important in the world economy around that time. So they funded some of the slavery projects in Africa. It's not just owning slaves in America and selling them to build the University of Georgetown University, but they funded the traders who went to Africa to bring the slaves and sell them all over the world. The Catholic Church played a role in that too. I'm not making this up. So African leaders should also confront them on that. And I know Pope Francis is a very honorable human being, because for a man to be in such a great, big institution, to acknowledge the past of evil committed by some of the very members of this great institution, that should tell you the kind of person that Pope Francis is. That's a very good, kind human being. That's a good human being, because a lot of popes have come and gone. None of them, even though they knew of it, have ever come out to apologize and acknowledge the evil role that the Catholic Church played against these innocent children in the native land in Canada. But he is the first pope that I know of that has come out and apologized for that evil sin that was done to these people. So that tells you the kind of human being Pope Francis is. He's a great human being. He's a very honorable human being because he is not playing politics. He's telling the truth. And a lot of people don't know the history and the role of the Catholic Church right around the 14th, 15th, 17th, 16th, 17th century, all the way. The Catholic Church was big and is still big, played a lot of roles in so many things around the world. Not just the issue of slavery and not just the issue of abuses and all that stuff. They did a lot of stuff. You go to the Vatican, you know, they have the Vatican Museum. Some of these ancient African artifacts that are there, that were looted by our colonial masters. Some of the rare artifacts of African civilization, that is where you find them, in the Vatican. As a matter of fact, 2007, when the Ethiopian government sued the Catholic Church, petitioned the United Nations for them to bring the obelisk of Aksum. The obelisk of Aksum. The Ethiopian government had been petitioning the world for the Vatican, the Catholic Church, to bring that obelisk. And they always turned it down until 2007. Finally, they decided to return the obelisk of Aksum to Ethiopia. So, I mean, like I said, they've done a lot. They've done a lot. But that is not the only thing I want to talk about. Now, talking about churches, I'm going to talk about something that happened at Brooklyn, New York. I think the name of the pastor is Pastor Whitehead, I think so. He was robbed whilst preaching live on Facebook last week, Sunday. It was all over the news in America. I mean, the pastor was robbed. And a lot of people felt very sorry for the incident. I mean, just imagine a pastor preaching at a church live on Facebook and people pull up with guns, took up his jewelry, watch, pretty much stripped him of jewelry. Then a couple of days later, coming to find out, this same pastor on TikTok with his wife, flashing, showing off his luxury cars, his jewelry, his Gucci, Louis Vuitton jacket, and all of that stuff. Talking about his real estate education of people, to educate people on how to flip houses in the real estate market in America and all that stuff. And then people started asking, is this same pastor who was just robbed on Facebook Live? Come on, man. Same pastor. Robbed on Facebook Live, coming to find out this is the kind of person he is. So this tells you, it's unfortunate. I go to church. I used to go to church a lot, but I don't go to church like I used to. But the fact of the matter is, I think that the pastors, modern day pastors, and the institution, the religion itself, to me, two of the most corrupt professions right now, especially in Africa, are the pastors and the politicians. These are the two most corrupt people in Africa today. You go to Africa, drive in Africa, less than a mile, every half a mile, whilst driving on an African major street, you see the advertisement of churches, evangelism, talking about all-night services, healing, this and that. All because that is how they have enriched themselves, by preying on the weak in society. So this pastor in New York, he's not the only one. I mean, this guy was, on TikTok, talking about his cars, what do you call it, Rolls Royce, Porsche, Bentley, and all of that stuff. Making a fool of his own congregants. Because at the end of the day, look at it this way, fellows. How did this man get this money? He has a church. Every Sunday, you guys who go to this church, your tithes The so-called tithe you give to the church, that is what this dude lives on. So you are the one feeding his family, feeding him on his clothes, feeding him on his cars, feeding him on everything that you saw on that TikTok video. Because the only way he makes money is when you guys go to church and pay your tithes. And he's not the only one, like I said before. You go to all across Africa, pastors now have to have private jets. They have to drive the finest cars in the world. They have to live in the most expensive houses. All are at your backs. You wake up Monday, a market woman goes to work in the scorching sun in Africa, works from Monday through Saturday. Then on Sunday, he goes and gives his tithes to a fraudulent pastor. And that fraudulent pastor uses that tithes to put his or her children in private schools, private pool, and what do you call it, clubs, beautiful houses, beautiful cars, jewelry. Meanwhile, that poor market woman can't even afford, in some cases, even to feed his or her own children a 3 square meal a day. That is a shame. That is a shame. And these things have to change. To have faith does not necessarily mean you have to be in a particular religion or church. You can have faith without putting yourself in an institution, in a religious institution, for you to be robbed like that. It's about time these market women, these African women and African men, I'm not saying that don't worship God. You can worship God. Worship your God. You can pray. Have faith. Believe in yourselves. But don't be feeding these corrupt, fraudulent pastors with your money. Because that's what they are doing. They are using your money to invest and then to pay for their children's private institutions, whilst you cannot even afford to do that for yourselves. But anyway, that is what I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to come back later and talk about other stuff with regards to these pastors and all that stuff. But if it is Sunday, it is the Africa Weekly Talk. So please, thank you guys for tuning in and spending your Sundays with me. And God bless you and God bless your week. Peace and love.